I'm going to go live everywhere.
Now look, this is gonna get weird, all right? It's pretty freaky, but it's safe. There's no reason to be scared.
Oh, no, Daddy don't get scared.
Really?
Yeah, good.
Wanda,
Yes, dear.
are you using your powers to turn on the light?
You couldn't have done that earlier.
I hate you.
I like this.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
I have an army. We have a Hulk.
I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by you. We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Baskin-Robbins always finds out.
I am Iron Man.
I'm Groot.
I am Steve Rogers.
We're all standing up now. Bunch of jackasses standing in a circle.
Because that's what heroes do.
Hello and welcome to Maximum MarvelDrive, a Who Watches podcast about the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the television universe, and anything they're doing that's canonical right now. I'm Travis Fishburn.
I'm Dustin Meadows.
And I'm Ryan DeVere.
And this week we will be covering WandaVision, Episode 4. We interrupt this program. And much to my surprise, we got very little Wanda or Vision in this episode.
Just a little bit.
I kept seeing posts all Friday of characters that I was like, oh, interesting. I feel like this is a spoiler. And then I watched the episode and I'm like, I don't know what other images these people were supposed to use at this point, because we get introduced to some old cinematic universe characters, all of which are meeting each other for the first time on screen, which is kind of exciting. You've got all these different corners. Dustin, what did you think of this episode?
I dug it a lot, especially as a big fan of Randall Park. I was super excited to see him show up. I kind of wish that I hadn't known he was going to show up just from the casting announcement and everything, but didn't ruin the surprise or the joy of seeing Jimmy Woo again one bit. I dug it. It was our first real kind of glimpse behind the curtain episode of this series. Answered a lot of questions that we've had brought up, and still left us with a few new ones. So I dug it. I think this episode could not have been more perfectly placed. I think they're doing a really good job studying the tone and the pace for the revealing of all this information, and I'm excited to see how they continue building and going forward from this one.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. I like that it just kind of opened it up and let you see, oh, okay, all right. So we don't have to keep going with this this whole facade of this episodic, sitcom television. We still will, but we're gonna have more info about what it means now. Ryan, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a huge episode in the series. It's kind of going to plot the course ahead. But also, I mean, I never would have, like, the opening for this episode was not something I expected we'd get into. And we get some other answers about kind of post Captain Marvel stuff. And we're finally now like weaving into the MCU at large. Good stuff. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's get into it. The whole episode felt more like the whole time you're watching it, you're like, oh, this is what I would expect an MCU show to look and feel like, more than what we've gotten thus far, which is purposeful. But Yeah, from the get-go, like the scene you're talking about, Ryan, where we actually see repercussions real time of the blip, and it's kind of crazy.
It raises a lot of questions for me of like, what if somebody else was sitting in the chair while she came back? Do they just get fused together?
Yeah.
That,
we're gonna see.
Me and my roommate
a
were
whole...
actually talking about this, and at least going off of Banner's snap in Endgame, the desire was for everyone to be returned to a safe place where they weren't in danger or occupying like another person's physical space or anything like that.
So you wouldn't have maybe come right back to where you were, but maybe 2 feet to the left or something. Right?
Exactly. Or like if you were about to crash your car, you would maybe have reappeared in your driveway or something safe.
Or if you were in an airplane, you wouldn't just
show up. Feels like, I'm mid-landing an airplane.
I mean, to what extent does that go? Are you like, the blip just kind of picks where to put you? Now you're on a desert island. Have fun. Like, hopefully you can get back. But
So I mean, and it seemed, at least with most people, especially with Monica, that she was placed relative to where she was before the first snap.
Mm-hmm. Exactly where she was.
Yeah, because she comes to find out that her mother died literally a year or two after she was snapped out of existence.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like Spider-Man Far From Home, we got kind of like a comical version of this, and then this is a
5 years ago, half of all life in the universe, including our own Midtown High, was wiped from existence. But then, 8 months ago, a band of brave heroes brought us back. They called it the blip.
There you go.
Yeah, we get a fairly, because like that, it's like people reappearing in the middle of a basketball court and bumping into each other. And then this, like, we get her coming back to find out that her mother's been dead, and her mother never got to like reconcile that her daughter was ever safe. She just, as far as she knew, her daughter was gone forever, which really hits in a different way than Spider-Man did. So already, maybe the most emotional moment we've had in WandaVision so far.
Yeah, very much so. And the way that they came back, it took me a while to really realize, like, okay, this is people coming back from the blip, because, A, where we were left in the previous episode, this is now a flashback, and B, because of what we saw in Spider-Man Far From Home, it being something they played comedically, but it happens very rapidly, like people just appear. And in this, they come back in a very similar way that they were initially snapped out, where the dust kind of like forms back into them slowly, which makes a lot more sense than...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's still the opening shot was a really cool visual too. I appreciated that on its own. I was like, oh yeah, because up to this point, like we've talked about, the show has been old sets and black and white and like very low tech, and then this shot was like, oh, this looks cinematic. This is real good.
Apparently the budget for this show is like 225 million or something.
Oh, gee.
Something of the equivalent of one of their films, and we've not seen that on screen thus far until now.
Yeah. Wow. Really? That surprises me, considering, I mean, we've talked about this, I think, every episode. This is a gamble of a show. This this could really not come together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing though, is like it's definitely a gamble, but I think with things happening the way they did, with us not getting a new movie this year, with us, we were supposed to get 2 new movies this year, weren't we? Or was it just Black Widow?
Yeah, 2 new movies.
Black Widow would have been last year.
Yeah, Black Widow and Eternals.
Black Widow and
in
Eternals,
2020.
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, with us not having gotten anything for a year and a half, they were probably just like, I think we could take a gamble. People are they're gonna need their Marvel juice.
Yeah.
So they'll tune in. They'll like what we tell them to like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is way more interesting than the Black Widow movie, in my opinion. But again, I've not seen that,
Oh, for
so
sure.
I don't know.
Like, yeah, I'm stoked for a Black Widow movie, but like, especially knowing that it's a prequel, like, I don't care as much. That's honestly, it's the only thing that kind of took the wind out of my sails for the Captain Marvel movie. Is like, okay, we're getting an origin story 20 years before like any of this stuff happens. All right, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like Rogue One, who cares about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It felt really good to be in like current day though, right? I mean, we moved right along. We met I keep wanting to call her Grenadine. What's her name?
Geraldine was her identity.
Monica
is her real name. Monica Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau. I obviously she has like a part in Captain Marvel. When we talked about her last week, I try not to look into the casting. I try to be as go in as blind as I can. And I thought it really would have been Monica Rambeau would have just been this interesting little tidbit, but it seems like we're going to follow. Like she's going to be a major part of the show moving forward, and
yeah,
that's really cool so far because we have some sort of background on her, and now we've got this interesting dynamic. I think bringing her back from the blip is a fantastic way to introduce her as a character. She has stakes. She has emotion. This is the most melancholy response to the blip that we've seen so far. They're bringing her in strong, and she's gotten cast out of this whatever this is by Wanda already. Like big things at play.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and it's not.
She's kind of.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and she's kind of this this opposite version of like kind of what Wanda's going through, because Wanda experienced trauma and loss with both her brother and then Vision, and so she is creating this world in which she doesn't really have to acknowledge reality. And Monica, at the beginning of this episode, suffers, an equally devastating traumatic loss, and she is getting right back into reality and is facing it head on. So it's kind of interesting. We've got these two characters at play.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and Wanda, we've been with her longer too, and like Wanda exists now pretty much as she did when we met her, except she's not a villain anymore. Whereas Monica, we met her as a little girl, and then years of not knowing how her life went, and now we know that her mom's dead and she works for SWORD. So huge jump there, even though we get a little bit more kind of insight and a little more backstory to her, I guess.
Yeah, and I think she was a pilot, or trying to be a pilot or astronaut like her mother, from what we've kind of gather from in the next scene where she goes into SWORD and she meets up with what's the character's name? Director Tyler Hayward, who seemed to have taken what would have been her job when her mother passed away. So they're doing everything terrestrial now. They're not. They've kind of put a pause on their astronaut training program, which a lot of people I've seen have been speculating this series and SWORD in particular, hinting at Fantastic Four down the road.
Yeah.
Sure, let's do it. It's going to be, no matter what they do to introduce the Fantastic Four now, is going to be different than anything else that Marvel's done, right? I mean, we're way into the narrative here for the first family to be introduced.
Oh yeah. Unless, of course, Marvel decides to recast Chris Evans as the Human Torch again. Then it's just well-worn territory. which I wouldn't be mad about. He was the best part of those first two movies.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And Chris Evans is going to be returning to the MCU apparently. So
is that a
maybe that's
a fact?
I think so.
I saw conflicting information on that. I saw people talking about it, and then I saw another statement saying that it was a miscommunication of some sort. Again, I wouldn't be mad about it because Chris Evans is charming and delightful.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have enough Chris Evans, frankly, so I wouldn't be mad about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a delight, right?
Oh,
They knocked it out of the. This is neither here nor there, but they knocked it out of the park with casting the original Avengers.
Oh, for
I
sure.
mean, it's just every one of them stands on their own. But yeah,
You don't think we should have gotten John Krasinski Captain America?
I like him a lot better as Reed Richards, which there's been rumors about that for a long time. But and then we could do Emily Blunt.
And then Emily Blunt would be
It would work great. But there's not been anything. There were rumors for a while, and I've not heard anything about it since then.
Yeah. Guess we should stop talking about Fantastic Four.
What other Marvel things
actual-
can we talk about?
Yeah.
So she goes back to Sword, and they apparently don't have any sort of protocol. Like later on, we find out that there's protocol for people who come back from the blip. But Monica walks up to the door and just doesn't. She just act. It's kind of the if you walk in somewhere with purpose, they'll let you in anywhere. She acts like she's just going to make it right through, as if nothing happened. She didn't go to be, debriefed or anything. She's just like, yeah, I'm just going to go back to work and sit at my desk. Which I thought that was weird. Like they didn't go, oh yeah, you're back from the blip. That's great. I mean, you got to assume she has some sort of high level clearance.
Oh yeah.
Nobody
Well, in that conversation, the director he straight up tells her, is like, hey, you're grounded because we don't know where you're at, like mentally or anything, after coming back from this. So it's condensed, but it's there, just very quick, kind of.
Yeah, but like in that she asks who gave that order, and he's like, yeah, your mom. So like clearly her mom had some sort of expectation that people that got blipped might come back.
Yeah.
But it didn't go as far as, what do we do when they walk in the door? How do we deal with that?
Yeah.
But
you ground them and you partner them with Jimmy Woo. That's what you do.
yeah.
Yeah. So she gets assigned to help out an FBI agent who's on a missing persons case. Yeah. So she goes out to New Jersey to Westview.
Yeah.
And as soon as, I was like, he's involved and there's a missing person. Who's the missing person? Like, who can it be? Immediately I want to say Scott Lang because that's our connection with that character thus far, but I don't know if that makes sense. He's also in the Witness Protection Program, whoever this person is. I think it's somebody big because Vision, Paul Bettany, I almost just said Vision, but Paul Bettany said that there is one more like major player in the show that has not been like revealed yet. So I would guess it's this person.
That would make sense. I've heard some other theories based on characters that have played a part in this narrative. But most of those are characters we've never seen before. So I don't know that we're getting introduced to somebody new in this season, but I don't know. I don't know yet. I also appreciated that they played the old trope of every cop drama always has like, the grizzled main character is like able to finish everybody's sentences. Oh yeah, I know, like Scott, Jimmy, right? Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy Woo.
Yep, Jimmy Woo.
Like Jimmy Woo's talking about what's going on here. Associates relevant, and Monica's like, and let me guess, no. It's like, Okay, that's just cop drama stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're still getting in those nods to shows, even if they're not in the show right now.
Yeah, this episode was just cop drama version.
And also, the most important development: Jimmy Woo finally mastered that card trick.
Yeah.
Do what?
It's taken him a couple of years, but he's got it down now.
Seriously?
That was such a great
Yep.
little tidbit.
Oh yeah,
5 years he practiced.
such an amazing touch. So yeah, then we find out from the cops that there's no such place as Westview, even though they're literally standing right by the sign for it, which gives us that real X-Files, almost honestly more of an Erie, Indiana vibe, more than an X-Files, because it's like threatening, but not like terrifyingly so, like a lot of the X-Files can be.
Yeah,
it's true.
Which, like, at first I thought the cops were just being dumb. It was like, why would an Eastview exist without a Westview? But then I was like, okay, I see the picture you're painting here. I got it now. And then they send in a drone that disappears.
Yeah, the drone that is just straight up shaped like a helicopter.
Yep.
I don't see very many of those, but it was convenient so that it could turn into the drone that Wanda finds in episode 2.
Yeah,
they wanted you to be able to make that connection.
Well, because it looks more like a box with a propeller on it than a helicopter.
Yeah.
Because it's real hard edges and everything. And then, of course, she finds, like, what an actual helicopter looks like when she finds the drone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Other notable things that people have pointed out is Westview has the same initials as WandaVision.
Oh.
Don't know what that is. I definitely trying to pay attention to the motifs and the things we like. We talked about this with the Watchmen, where everything felt so deliberate, and you never know with this show if everything is deliberate or not, or if it's just like, it's a little
just coincidental.
It's just a coincidental thing.
Yeah,
because people have been really trying to make sense of the hexagons, because there's been like a hexagonal trend so far, and people are like, what does it mean? Oh, and then the beekeeper, that must mean something. And then we get through this episode, it doesn't seem like it means a whole lot yet.
Not only that, but like I love that in this episode we get a montage of them watching and doing research with stuff on a blackboard, and they're writing the same things that the people watching have been asking. Like, why the hex symbol?
Yeah, Jimmy Woo's whiteboard updates are so good. Why hexagons? And then shortly after that, we get sword operatives mobilized and set up, and we get is it Darcy Lewis returns from the Thor movies, and she has gone from intern to full blown astrophysicist in just a short couple of years.
Well,
I guess it's probably been 6 or 7.
It has, because it's been 2013 is when Thor: The Dark World came out. So real time, that's that's almost 8 years now. And then you add another 5 for the, Infinity War to Endgame thing that they did.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which part of me is wondering, with her showing up, I'm blanking on his name, but Stellan Skarsgård's character. Wondering if maybe he could be the missing person, because he's like the guy for like cosmic phenomenon that they tend to always go to.
He's kind of dropped off, hasn't he? Have we seen him since Avengers 1?
Yeah, that's the last time we saw him.
Yeah, I think the only time we see him after that is in flashback to Avengers 1 in Endgame.
Yeah, he's in Thor: The Dark World 2, which is after Avengers.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the last time.
So, so Thor 2: The Dark World is his most recent appearance timeline-wise, I think.
I don't remember much about that movie. I do remember Darcy. I think she was a great character. But almost everything else, it was unsatisfying.
He goes crazy and is running around in his underwear a lot.
Around Stonehenge.
You know, yes.
Which it's also really cool too, because like there was a part of me that initially was like, oh man, are we really gonna get Darcy? But like, because Darcy was definitely clearly comic relief in the Thor movies, but like she is a really well-rounded character this time. Like she is throwing her weight around, like she really knows what she's doing this time. So like
Yeah.
That's like one of the hugest character shifts we've seen from especially like a secondary or tertiary character in these movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somebody who is primarily comic relief is now like almost the straight man now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what should I
And
have
then, of
in
course, we
charge?
find-
Position.
Yeah. Well, then of course we have another question answered. We find out that Darcy is the person watching the first episode of WandaVision.
Yeah.
At the end of it. So,
Which,
so we're getting some questions answered, and then some new ones thrown out at us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are a lot of interesting questions that when they start watching the show, because I have questions while they're watching. I'm like, all right, this can't all like happen real time because they've only got like 90 minutes now to to catch up.
Yeah.
And it makes it clear, I think, that there are more episodes because Darcy talks about Wanda like washing dishes almost every episode, which we don't see.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there are multiple episodes that have gone on that we only see the 3, but they've seen a few of them.
Yeah, we're getting the highlights, the things that are relevant, and yet it's a marathon basically for them. I chewed on that for a minute and came to basically the same conclusion. There's got to be more that's happening.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the 2 other questions we get answered, we find out that Jimmy is the one who attempts to contact her through the radio from episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also find out that what the members of SWORD and the people that are set up outside of Westview are witnessing is not the same thing that we've been witnessing each episode. Because those moments that are cut,
edited.
They don't see those, like what got switched. They just see what Wanda cut to, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And again, we find this out towards the end, but now we know that essentially, like, Wanda is basically the DVR for this show, but anything that gets trimmed out, nobody but her sees it. So, like, they don't see Vision's dead body or anything like that when the show airs.
Yeah. Which, so I mean, that's jumping way ahead. We'll circle back to that later. I had thoughts about that, whether that was actually happening or if that's just her still trying to not process. She's still trying to dissociate from what she knows is real.
I think there's a little bit of both happening.
Yeah.
You think she's animating his dead body?
I think his, actual corpse is there.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, she's affecting things as she goes. Like, she essentially wishes the sword agent in a way that appears as the beekeeper. She casts him out. She does the same thing to Geraldine to Monica when Monica mentions Ultron and Quicksilver. So, like, realistically, I think what happened with when she sees Vision, she probably kind of dropped her guard down and let down the illusion that she was projecting, and then was like, "Oh, this is terrifying. No, I want long, shaggy-haired Paul Bettany and not this corpse of a robot walking around my living room, please."
I agree. I'm with her on that one. Did we actually see the beekeeper get cast out?
I don't think he did.
We don't
just gone.
We don't physically see it. We just see her like rewind, and then he just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah. What other notable things happen in between? We jumped ahead quite a bit.
So we find out that the other cast of the show are real people from the world,
residents
who
of
have
the
been placed
town,
into Wanda's sitcom reality, essentially.
Right. Which at the beginning
which
of the
is
episode,
interesting.
I'm sorry, Travis. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say interesting that Herb seems to not be in on it to a degree, because like the Catherine Hahn Agnes character is still not identified. So obviously she's more aware. She's playing at something that the others aren't. And I thought that Herb seemed to be in on it with her based on the previous episode, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, and we don't really know enough yet, right? I mean, it could be. We don't know why Westview was the chosen place. We don't know any of that. At the beginning, though, they said it's like a town of like 1,300, right?
Real small.
And so there's really small, but also that's a lot of people in a cast of a show. Like we don't know what's happening with the rest of these people. Are they just kind of playing about their life in this kind of Truman Show type scene, or are they doing something else? Are they frozen when they're not in frame? You know, all this kind of weirdness that's introduced.
Yeah. And I mean, part of me wonders, like, if maybe some of the players, like, they've identified a lot of the cast as real people. Part of me wonders if some of that cast isn't, like, maybe constructs of some kind. Like, where, like, maybe she pulled in a handful of real people for, like, larger parts, but, like, background people is just like, I can use my powers and conjure 3 people walking on the sidewalk with milkshakes or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, who knows?
Who knows? But also, as we're kind of putting stuff together, like who is a townsfolk here, and like who's in this, whatever it is, this dream. Darcy sees Monica in there for the first time, and they're trying to figure out, okay, is she playing along? Is she brainwashed? Like, you know, which, as bizarre as this whole thing is, that would be even more bizarre to be like, oh yeah, there's this chick that we know is not part of this.
Yeah. I think based solely on the way she conducts herself in the 2 episodes we see her, Monica is very much undercover and kind of trying to figure out what's going on. Because she keeps talking like during the dinner party in the 2nd episode, as opposed to all of the other wives who are like being proper and doing what they're supposed to. And then of course having knowledge outside of the sitcom reality too, about like Ultron and Sokovia and all that. So that's the impression that I got while she was in there, that she still retained who she was and remembered who she was. And even with what we see with the agent that goes in too, like he knows what he's going in there for. Like he's not confused about his motivations, but then Wanda just disappears him. So yeah, I think anyone that's come in from the outside after the people that are in there, with maybe the exception of Agnes and Herb, who we still don't really know what their deal is, probably come in retaining some idea of the reality going on outside.
Yeah. Also makes sense why she, in the previous episode, comes into the house and is just kind of like lingering there. She's probing and trying to find out more.
Yeah. Gather that information.
It's also worthy of note that it seems like everything that enters this space gets like edited into
to fit the time period.
Yeah, because we get the agent that's going in, he gets edited into being a beekeeper, but the tether that he was tied to, they pull it back out, and it's like an old school jump rope. And so like it even though it's left the field, it has been edited into something else entirely. And we don't get a whole lot of Monica in this episode to know like how much of her is intact and how much of her might have been edited.
We're again, my assumption entirely off of this, especially at the end when she comes out, she says that Wanda is controlling everything.
Yeah.
So that to me seems like Monica is pretty lucid, pretty with it, and pretty in charge of herself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last week, I don't know why I'm choosing the middle of the episodes to do this, but last week Alex had sent us a voicemail. He did not have time to do that this week, but he did send an email that I will read with his thoughts on the episode. And that is, this is exactly what I was waiting for from this series. Intense interconnectedness with the MCU, giving relatively minor characters a spotlight, being funny in traditional MCU way, and very cool visuals. I love seeing something in the immediate aftermath of the unsnapping, and I love seeing what was happening outside Wanda's bubble in parallel within what was going on inside. One thing I did note that I thought was interesting was that the versions of the episodes that Darcy, etc., were watching were vastly different edits and musical scores. It felt like they actually brought those things more into their intended time period. I'd be interested to know if that was ever considered as a direction for the first few episodes, because I may have even liked those moments a little better here. Also, I've been seeing on the internet that some people are very confused by the show, which doesn't make sense to me at all. There's nothing really confusing going on, just intrigue with answers. But maybe I watch too much David Lynch.
I will say to Alex's credit, this is less confusing than any David Lynch I've watched beyond Blue Velvet. So,
yeah,
I don't think we're even remotely close to David Lynchian levels of confusion in the MCU.
Yeah, there's no log lady here.
Yeah.
So,
no, this
no
is
log
not...
lady, no terrifying vagrant hiding behind a diner wall to scare a guy to death.
No. It seems like the show might be winning Alex over, maybe a little bit. I'm glad to see we're making progress there.
But I mean, I agree with that sentiment at the end about it's not really confusing anymore. I can understand it being confusing at the beginning,
For sure.
But now that they've dropped this episode, I hope that it would just reframe it for everybody.
Yeah, this has answered a lot of the questions that we had prior this episode. Hey, Hawaiian Punch, sponsor me.
Hey, this episode brought to you by Hawaiian Punch.
By my gallon jug of Hawaiian Punch. But yeah, we get a lot of answers this episode, and then we have more questions by the end of it, but they're questions that we should have by the end of the episode because we've been presented with new information. Literally up until the end of a show like this, I feel like we should have questions throughout. And I think the show is doing a good job of keeping us asking those questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to have the confusing roller coaster ride that was Lost.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to end in a church. I definitely don't think that.
But I do feel like there's an amount of intrigue. The only I guess the confusion I could see would be the whiplash of changing eras and, knowing that maybe this isn't all happening in real time. I don't know. It's a good point to bring up. And I, at the same time, do not feel like I'm confused by this show at all.
Oh yeah. And even the decade shifting thing, again, Marvel for the most part has proven to be pretty consistent throughout and everything they give them the benefit of the doubt and just enjoy the ride until the end of this. Because there's clearly a reason. I can't say as much about the X-Men movies where the decade jumping made zero sense, but this is clearly being done with thought and consideration. And again, a lot of this, like we said, is paying homage to tropes and styles and themes of the sitcoms of these decades, whereas the X-Men movies, it was all right, well, everyone's in the 80s now, and they should be in their 40s and 50s, but it's not going to look like it, and hey, we're going to reference two things that happened during this time period, when we could just as easily have not done that.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that Michael Fassbender should look a lot more like Ian McKellen now.
Oh yeah, him and McAvoy should both look a lot more like their older versions. Even by Apocalypse, they should have been way older. So, that's neither here nor there. I really don't care for the X-Men movies after First Class, and honestly, even Days of Future Past was just kind of okay for me.
That's fair. Yeah,
Logan was great though. Obviously, Logan was great. But
oh yeah,
Logan is the definitive best X-Men, right? I mean, you can't touch it. Although the opening
Logan's
scene-
crazy because I mean, that and the Wolverine were both directed by James Mangold, and I just feel like there's such a crazy difference in quality between the two movies. I think there's maybe a little more studio control with the Wolverine, but
yeah. Honestly, my biggest gripe with the Wolverine was just a lot of bad CGI, but
but that's a mainstay in the X-Men movies.
Unfortunately. And that's a podcast for another time.
Right, yeah. Let's complaining about X-Men.
WandaVision.
What else is going on in this episode? We've got... I thought it was just interesting that even the day and night cycles are kind of independent, whether you're in the bubble or out of the bubble. Because Wanda is talking to Monica in the bubble and it's daytime, and she gets thrown out and it's nighttime, and we get to watch that happen as she gets punched through the reality hole or whatever it is. So I mean, this does feel very much like it's a construct. Like the whole thing is a construct. Yeah. But to me, that then also begs the question of like, why is it still jumping eras? Like, if it's Wanda dissociating from reality, why is she moving through different eras? Is she just trying to find something that feels like home?
I think that's close. I heard somebody theorize that, at the first episode, maybe she realized I've gone back a bit too far. This does not really fit reality. And so the decades jumping is her maybe, just like how television itself, as it gets closer and closer to real time, is more approximating our own reality. Maybe she's trying to get closer to something that feels more familial, while at the same time, being able to maintain some kind of control over that. But, I think we'll see that that's unsuccessful. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, and every episode too, like something kind of disturbing or distressing seems to happen. So, I mean, it could also combine with, because I definitely think there's some truth to kind of trying to find something that fits. Like, it's also literally her just in the most obvious way running away from those problems and tying them to the specific time period that she associated them with.
Yeah.
And part of me also wonders if maybe she's not trying to get back to, like, it. I don't know how much sense it would make overall, but like, if she's not trying to get back to a time when her brother was still alive.
Which I think is...
Yeah.
I would really like to see Petrov, right, is his name? I'd like to see Pietro. Yeah. I would like to see him come back at least somewhere in this.
Yeah, like even if it's literally an illusion, like it would make sense for us to see Quicksilver again, even if just briefly, even if it's just within this illusion world she's created.
Interesting thing about Tommy and Billy, the two kids, I believe it's Tommy, grows up to be a speedster like Quicksilver. And there are rumors, I'll say, about people don't know what to think. If it's Aaron Taylor Johnson is going to come back and reprise Quicksilver in some way. And there are also people, like there is also a heavy rumor that Evan Peters is going to be in this series somewhere.
Interesting.
Which he's the guy who played, Quicksilver in the X-Men movies. And it's like, why would he be in this?
Right, yeah, as if that wasn't confusing enough already. in the theaters when that happened.
Yeah.
Let's just really cross it over.
Like, we've already got Deadpool referencing the MCU and the X-Men cinematic universe in the same movie.
Yeah, this might get messier before it gets cleaner.
Yeah.
And also, the two of them were in Kick-Ass together.
Yes. Only Clark Duke didn't go on to be a superhero.
Yeah, so then I guess we've seen a lot of reference to Hydra. We've seen a lot of reference to just other old school baddies in the MCU. Do you guys think that this is Wanda? I mean, we're only 4 episodes in. Do you think this is the reveal? Is that it is Wanda?
I think she's definitely controlling part of it, at the least. I certainly, especially with that scene with Agnes and Herb the last episode, I think there's more to it than just Wanda pulling the strings. But I do think that she at least thinks she's calling the shots.
Yeah.
But
and that's
I think there's
the
something
question
behind it, though.
Is, also to what end for this whoever else?
Yeah, because that's the thing too. Is like, if she wanted to go off the grid, and like she could do that. Like, instead of picking this place in the middle of New Jersey, and just building a reality where, like, she could not easily, because it definitely took some doing for them to figure out what was going on with this anomaly, but she's very trackable where she is now, more so than if she say went into space or into another galaxy or any number of things that we know exist that she could probably go to in the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, and she's not from America. She's from Sokovia. And so why this town at all anyway?
Where, I don't remember if it was Jersey or not, but there was where was the Hydra bunker in Winter Soldier?
It was in New York, I believe, upstate
New York, the one that him and Black Widow drive to?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was just thinking about that. I was like, they road tripped for a minute to get that far. So Jersey would fit, New York would fit. But yeah, part of me is wondering if maybe that's the connection, is that underground Hydra bunker that was supposedly destroyed, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been rebuilt in the time since Winter Soldier.
Yeah. So. Either way, I mean, I think the series is really picking up. I don't know. I wasn't sure. Like, I didn't think we would get this episode here. I thought it would be maybe episode 6 or 7 when we'd get pulled out. But now it has started to unravel some things, and we've been introduced to some characters that I want to see develop. And so I'm really curious where we go from here. I'm guessing next episode we're back in the series, like in the TV.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think so. Also, Dustin, I can confirm you're right. It is New Jersey.
I just looked that up. That's what I was going to say. So that might be our connection, is that Hydra bunker. Because I mean, it seems like everything in these movies is meant to set something else up. So
right.
So,
and it was, I mean, even in that movie in Winter Soldier, that was a pretty out of the blue bunker.
Oh yeah. So I mean, that's my theory, is that this town is somehow connected to that Hydra bunker, and Hydra may very well still be playing a role, because Hydra's the reason that Pietro and Wanda were raised and honed their skills the way they did too. So
Zola's still there.
Yeah.
Controlling everything. All right. Well, I think we got through this episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there anything we've not covered?
I talked about Jimmy Woo a whole bunch. That's all I needed.
Did the card trick. We didn't talk about the biggest mystery that was brought up in this. Will Jimmy Woo have children?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want one?
I love that they're keeping that going because he seems to have these really, awkward interpersonal skills based on what we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care about an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. You give me a show with Darcy Lewis and Jimmy Woo, I'll watch it. Sorry, Dr. Darcy Lewis and Agent Jimmy Woo, I will watch that show.
Yeah, it was their dynamic was good. I don't know if we'll get a lot of them together, but I would like to see more of them.
Yeah. They were super fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm curious how Monica, where she goes in the next couple episodes.
For sure.
Yeah. See where her mind is at.
Yeah.
And what's going on. Oh, what an experience for this person who, in the course of a month, what they've gone through.
Yeah. Mom was in surgery, and then it was suddenly 3 years later, and she's dead. And I tried to go back to work, and they didn't know who I was, and I can't do that. Then the missing person.
And then I went into a
then
sitcom.
Jimmy Woo. Yeah, and then I was in a sitcom for a while.
And then I got yeeted through a wall.
Right. Yeah, if she
yeeted out of
wasn't
a pocket dimension.
if she wasn't grounded before because of psychological distress, I think this will do it.
Yeah, getting thrown through a wall take a toll on you.
Couple walls.
Yep.
Yeah, that was like a Roger Rabbit cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so yeah, that's this episode. And so I think next they did have a preview of like what's still to come. I did not watch it. So there's a preview out there for the rest of the season. Yeah. Where we see some of the 80s and 90s and 2000s as far as what Wanda's putting together.
No.
So
I'm going to go in blind on all of them.
Good.
Cool.
So we will be continuing to cover that. And so until we do and come back next week, Dustin, where can we find more of your work at?
DustinMeadowsComedy.com, at Dustin Meadows on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me on Twitch, streaming Tuesdays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at twitch.tv/Dustin Meadows.
Cool. And Ryan, how about you?
You can find me at Harbjagen. That's HARBJAGEN on Twitter. Yeah.
All right. And you can find the show at Who Watches Pod on Twitter, Who Watches Podcast at gmail.com. Please reach out to us anytime. We are streaming every week on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And weekly episodes of the podcast go out on anywhere you get your podcast. Please subscribe and leave some awesome reviews. We appreciate all of them. So until next week's episode, piss off, you ghosts.
Piss off, ghost!